Analysis of Hannah Arendt's power-violence distinction. Hannah Arendt articulates her most concise and influential treatment of the relationship between power and violence in On Violence, 1970. This distinction forms a cornerstone of her political philosophy, challenging conventional assumptions that equate the two and offering a normative defense of politics grounded in human plurality. Core elements of the distinction. Arendt asserts that power and violence are not merely different but opposites. Where one rules absolutely, the other is absent. Power emerges from the collective capacity of individuals to act in concert. It is relational, consensual, and rooted in communication, persuasion, and shared deliberation within the public realm. Power depends on numbers, legitimacy, and the ongoing support of a plurality of actors. It is an end in itself, the very substance of genuine political life, and requires no external justification beyond its existence through coordinated action. Violence is instrumental, relying on implements, tools, weapons, or coercive mechanisms to multiply strength and compel obedience. It is a means to an end, inherently mute and isolating. While violence can destroy power by dispersing groups, silencing speech, and replacing persuasion with command, it cannot generate or sustain power. Arendt's memorable formulation captures this. Violence can always destroy power. It is utterly incapable of creating it. Out of the barrel of a gun grows the most effective command and instant obedience, but never power. Violence typically appears when power is in jeopardy. Governments or regimes that increasingly rely on violence signal underlying weakness rather than strength. Arendt notes that no government rests exclusively on violence. Even totalitarian systems require some basis of organized support, a form of power. Philosophical and political implications. This framework defends an Aristotelian-inspired vision of politics as the realm of freedom, speech, and action among equals, rather than domination or administration. By separating power from violence, Arendt critiques both bureaucratic statism and revolutionary romanticism, e.g., certain interpretations of Marx, Sartre, or Fanon that glorify violence as politically creative or purifying. The distinction carries clear normative weight. Sustainable political orders cultivate power through consent and institutions that enable collective action. Over-reliance on violence erodes legitimacy and risks terror, the condition where violence, having destroyed all power, rules without abdicating. In relation to coercion theories, such as those of Thomas Schelling or Robert Pape, Arendt's view implies that purely coercive strategies, whether through punishment or threats, operate in the domain of violence. They may achieve temporary compliance but undermine the relational power necessary for stable outcomes. Effective long-term influence requires legitimacy and collective buy-in rather than sustained instrumental force. Strengths. Conceptual clarity. Arendt's distinctions among power, strength, force, authority, and violence provide precise analytical tools that remain valuable for evaluating legitimacy and political decay. Anti-reductionism, she resists naturalistic or deterministic views of violence as inevitable or progressive, preserving space for human freedom and plurality. Diagnostic power. The thesis illuminates why regimes or leaders turning to overt coercion often reveal fragility, a pattern observable across historical and contemporary contexts. Criticisms and limitations. Scholars have raised several objections. Some argue that Arendt idealizes power while under-theorizing the constitutive role of state or legal violence in maintaining order. Critics contend her focus on dissident or revolutionary violence sometimes overlooks systemic violence embedded in institutions, potentially reflecting biases in her treatment of movements like Black Power. Others question the absoluteness of the opposition. In practice, political life often involves mixtures of consent and coercion. Founding moments of polities or responses to existential threats may require violence that later enables power structures. Additionally, the distinction may appear overly optimistic about the possibilities of non-coercive politics amid deep conflicts or power asymmetries. Enduring relevance. Arendt's analysis offers a lens for assessing contemporary phenomena, from military coercion and sanctions to domestic political strategies relying on threats or spectacle. It suggests that apparent displays of force frequently mask or accelerate the erosion of genuine power. In an era of advancing technologies of control and surveillance, her warning that violence substitutes for power but cannot replace it retains significant analytical and ethical force. In conclusion, Arendt's power-violence distinction is not merely descriptive, but a defense of politics as a distinctly human activity grounded in freedom and plurality. While subject to critique for potential idealism or selective application, it provides a gnawing corrective against conflating domination with strength and a reminder that legitimate, durable authority rests on consent rather than the barrel of a gun. This framework enriches broader discussions in strategic and political theory by highlighting the self-limiting nature of violence as a substitute for power.